As a voter, I'm embarrassed.
Kama mpiga kura ninaibika sana.
And the next election you must convince me.
Na katika uchaguzi ujao lazima unipatie sababu. Yes.
We are sick and tired of having noise.
Tumechoshwa na kelele.
We want performers.
Tunataka watenda
we want
kazi.
Workers.
Tunataka watenda kazi.
Don't arm yourself like you are going for war.
Usijitie, usivae silaha kama kwamba
Arm
unaenda
yourself
vitani.
to serve the nation.
We will come back to that sermon in a minute. That was actually said after the sermon was done, and it was sort of the benediction. But let's have our benediction on the impeachment process and finish that. Deputy President says somebody is vicious.
I didn't know President William Ruto can be that vicious. I am shocked by how vicious a man I helped to be president, a man that I believed in, a man that I was persecuted when supporting him, could be so vicious against me when I'm literally fighting for my life in hospital. How cruel can a man be? You know, as we speak today, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Rigathi Gachagua, has no single security officer around him. I hear many of his people are calling here asking whether I'm dead, whether I'll survive, whether I'll recover. They were celebrating. It's the most unfortunate thing that has ever happened in this country.
Indeed. Listening to him, you can feel the pain, but you also wonder, like you're asking, when did he realize that? Because I do not believe the president changed on that day or on Friday, on Thursday, when he experienced the
chest pains,
intense chest pains. But it takes you back to the question, because even if you have to look at the Constitution, Article 10, that many political leaders like to quote, even on the floor of the House, that is the National Assembly or the Senate, talking about national values and principles of governance. And I just want to refer to it. Article 10 on the national values and principles of governance include patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy and participation of the people.
Both that carried you to where you are today. Tribalism, speaking to those ethnic emotions, was what actually led to the formation of this government. I mean, there are songs and a lot of reflections going on in Mount Kenya right now about waking up early and voting a certain way. I mean, we've seen some leaders now talking about time to reflect because they voted with ethnic agendas in mind.
Yeah.
That, you know, this is our government. It was a shareholder arrangement, right from the voting stage. And so, if the president, like he said in Kwale, is determined to revive this conversation about tackling ethnicity, it must come with an acceptance that even the voting patterns have been encouraged to be very ethnic in their form. And I was watching a clip by former Molo MP, a man I covered as a reporter, very, very effective member of parliament called Njenga Mungai. And Njenga Mungai is taking the message to his Mount Kenya cousins. You know, he's in the Rift Valley, so let me call the Mount Kenya his cousin, that, you know, they need to reflect on how they actually vote. And it's a valid point, because when you look at certain voting patterns, they are more negative in terms of the intention than positive in terms of intention. We see voters coming out more to punish than to reward. So you're coming to kick out than to kick in. And this negative pattern, what has this done effectively? And I think the point that Njenga Mungai was making was really, really valid, because it says that there is a very, very big contribution to the degeneration of the quality of leadership in such voting patterns. And this is very, very true. You just need to look at the quality of MCAs, quality of members of parliament, quality of senators, quality of governors that have been produced by this negative way of voting where you vote to reject than to elect.
Yeah.
It's a very weird kind of thing. And what you do is you can inflict upon yourselves a wrong government, a wrong leader, and another 5 years of reflections.
And something, before you lose it, remember that during the same week we've seen 108 members of staff at the office of the Deputy President being required to proceed on compulsory leave. Well, of course, we're getting some more information of people from that office saying that not everyone listed as an advisor is an advisor. Some saying that actually some of those staff members have since left the office, but never mind. You saw the list, and there's been a lot of reading into it. And I'm just wondering, first, there's the question of bloated wage bill that we keep talking about here in the country. You look at that list and you see how many advisors the Deputy President has, and you're just wondering, if Yvonne were to have 10 advisors, you must also plan your work when you listen to them and what you do with whatever they tell you and how you process that. I'm just wondering, when you surround yourself with so many advisors, when do you listen to them and what do you do with whatever they tell you? And then, how many advisors does the presidency in total have?
Yeah.
How many advisors advise the president? Rather, how many advisors exist for the president?
Right.
But also it's important to have this conversation that if indeed you're talking about equality in the country, fighting tribalism and ethnicity, who is around you? Who is advising you? I saw someone talking about that certain offices, whether you go to the counties or at the national level, you find people surrounding themselves with people from their region. There's a problem there. Are you just creating positions for jobs for your friends, or because these are important roles that they need to play in advising you? And then eventually, what do you do with that advisory that you receive, so that the decisions that are being taken are not just being taken because of the idea of the person in office. It has also been enhanced by the counsel that that leader is getting, which is informed, so that you don't find yourself, you've done so much, but all those decisions are quashed in court because either you got the wrong advice or a single lane of advice.
So, advice perhaps is one of the things we hope to get from religious leaders, and now they're giving a different set of advice. I want us to listen to Teresia Wairimu, a very well-known evangelist in the country from the Faith Evangelistic Ministry, and she has some interesting advice now.
Because all the way till now, I have always been thinking that this government is a government of God.
Kwa maana wakati huu wote nilikuwa nafikiria serikali hii ni serikali ya Mungu.
Because it's the one we voted
Kwa
for.
maana ndio tulioichagua.
To our embarrassment,
Lakini kwa aibu yetu,
it's a government of fight.
ni serikali ya vita.
Okay, just so that we can do that, I want us to listen to the second one of Teresia Wairimu. That's bite number 3, where she talks about being disappointed as a voter and what she is going to do in the next election and what she's asking her congregation to do as well. That just ties up that point.
As a voter, I'm embarrassed.
Kama mpiga kura ninaibika sana.
And the next election, you must convince me.
Na katika uchaguzi ujao lazima unipatie sababu.
We are sick and tired of having noise.
Tumechoshwa na kelele.
We want performers.
Tunataka watenda
We want
kazi.
workers.
Tunataka watenda kazi.
Don't arm yourself like you are going for war.
Usivae silaha kama kwamba
Arm
unaenda
yourself
vitani.
to serve the nation of Kenya and the people who voted for you.
Za kufanyia kazi wa Kenya na watu waliokuchagua.
We're going to do another prayer. Come here, Minister Herbert.
Tutafanya ombi lingine.
Come on, let's arm ourselves. Somebody must go home again. People must start to go home. Home is where we want you, in your village. Don't stop anywhere. We are sending most of you home.
Now, this is, I think it's just disappointing because how did you even get here? When I was young, I used to go to church for other reasons. Either needed to be formation in the Christian faith, or you needed to be taught morals, or you just needed to be a good Christian or citizen. To an extent that actually our religious leaders can come out and say that these are not the people we elected. When did we mix state and religion? Which for me, that should not happen, because even the Constitution is quite clear that there is no state religion. To an extent that now our religious leaders are regretting the actions, the decisions that they took in the last election and the previous elections. These are places we should not have been, because if you talk about even for persons that are in positions of influence, what do you tell your followers? So if you lead a congregation, whether it's in church or whatever your religion is, what are you telling the people? How are you influencing them? And I remember something I was told by a senior cleric in December 2022, which I will quote, that Jesus was healing and giving food to the people, but he was not part of the Roman Empire. So he was doing the work of the Lord. The work of the Lord was not in government. Now we sit here, they're actually people that went to State House, people from the religious groupings, seeking for state appointments. Some were lucky. That is not the calling for these people. You cannot be a religious leader, but your work is to propagate politics. Then I think that's the wrong call. And I don't think that should happen. I think it's time that even as religious leaders want to inspire the people that they lead, it is also an opportunity to have some civic education for people to make their own decisions without being influenced through the religious groupings. I think this is just unfortunate, and it's starting to show.
Are the religious leaders in the same position that Rigathi Gachagua is? Finding out how vicious a man can be, that they trusted?
Look,
Propped?
Yeah, Teresia Warimu is a rarely seen preacher outside her specific mission.
And she commands a following.
But
you never see her like this.
No.
Quite like this.
And honestly, I think this is the first time I've seen her making a statement that is political in a way. And she doesn't make it in the positive sense. She makes it in the sense of expressing frustrations and disappointment. Because, let's face it, the UDA Kenya Kwanza campaign enjoyed quite a backing of what was then called the church movement. A lot of preachers supported the election of President William Ruto, and they saw him as one of them, First Lady as one of them, and all that. So this is a point of reflection that we are hearing from very, very unlikely quarters, where some of the church leaders are talking about being disappointed with this. But what are they really pointing out at? I think they are pointing out at possible frustration, not just by themselves, but by a majority of Kenyans who just like to see a government that was elected more than 2 years ago now settle down and do something instead of permanently looking like it's arranging to take over office. I mean, it's 2 years down the line. So I could sense and understand the frustration of the preacher that is talking about we need to now work because really it's looking like we are taking quite a lot of time to settle down as a country, and there's a lot of movement. Can I call it that? In the classroom. It's time to sit down.
Settle down. The lesson is about to begin, but no, everybody's up and about.
And do something. And I think comparatively, this administration, if you compare it to the last two, that's Uhuru Kenyatta, and before that, Mwai Kibaki, has taken a lot longer to settle down. And the rhythm is yet to take shape. And it shouldn't go further than this because time is running out. The term is only 5 years. We've done 2. And now we are actually starting the 3rd on a very wobbly note. But as we talk about that, I just needed to mention what else these events inform us, and that is the need to have a strong, stable civil service, which is how we were shaped at independence by the people who now run a country called Britain and England, where they change prime ministers more frequently than we change bulbs. And it doesn't bother, it doesn't really destroy the country. It doesn't stop things from working. And that is because of a strong civil service. But when we have an environment like this, where now maybe even principal secretaries are all on the edge waiting to see how will this impeachment go and what is the impact of the impeachment on my office, is there another reshuffle? You know, that instability in the civil service, we should find that unsettling more than the impeachment. Of course, politicians should impeach themselves as many times as they remove them. In the UK, it's fine. It's actually very healthy. It's hygienic. It's really very, very hygienic for them. I mean, look at them. They are now questioning things that they couldn't question a few years ago. Because the things that Rigathi Gachagua is in the dock for are exactly the things that any other politician today, up or down, will actually be on the dock for. So it's really, really nice to see that the political community is thinking that way, which is why some would see, that may include some Gituku here, some would see the impeachment as a trial of the pot by the kettle. You know, everyone in the room is black, whether it's you're talking about tribalism, dividing Kenyans. They've all been there. And I think these are some of the reflections that are also hitting home with some of the most reserved religious leaders that we are now seeing, like Teresia Wairimu, who rarely, very rarely, makes political statements.
Who very rarely speaks in this way. I mean, I think it's also just a departure from, I mean, I think perhaps for the time that I have, you know, covered events in this country, this has been the most remarkable time where the church was really talking about the administration as that has been ordained by God. In certain aspects of the evangelical movement, you couldn't even question, you know, the presidency, because what has been ordained by God cannot be, you know, spoken about, and you must give that time. You know, regardless of the fact that we have laws, we have a constitution, we have elections, and that's not to discount, you know, the work of a higher being, if that's what, you know, you choose to believe in. But there were certain aspects of the evangelical movement that, you know, were part and parcel in certain aspects of the campaign of this administration, and, you know, also into the administration. And now you see quite a few of them walking that back and seemingly disappointed with that. And we've seen faith taking a very central role. I mean, I think we've been talking about faith diplomacy and the role that is playing, you know, at State House. So this is an interesting point in this country, I think, considering the role that certain aspects of the religious, you know, leaders played in the run-up to this. But then doesn't it go to show that is there any sector of society that is pleased with where this administration is going, for whatever reason? It may be personal that, you know, I didn't get what, you know, was promised to me and I didn't get my share or whatever. But there is something telling about where we are in this country right now. Look at, you know, what happened in June and July. There was citizens saying we're unhappy. The church, certain aspects and you know, of it are saying they're unhappy. And even if you move away from the evangelicals, I mean, we've seen Bishop Anthony Miheria, we've seen, you know, Archbishop Ole Sapit, and others from what you would term the bigger mainstream churches who have been saying the country is not moving in the right direction. So it's the church, it's society, it's civil society, it's the young people, it's those who are employed, it's those who are in business, it's the mamamboga. Something is happening.
Right.
There is a sentiment here that is being, given. Is anybody listening? Particularly, is the President of the Republic of Kenya listening, not just hearing what is being said and what's being done, about it? So I think that for me was what was remarkable about what we've seen with the church. Yani, it's everybody, like everyone. So,
and I think every other sector of the society has to call itself to a very urgent meeting to reflect on what exactly they are doing. Because it reminds me of, many Kenyans say that one of the best presidents to ever rule or govern Kenya was Mwai Kibaki. And Mwai Kibaki, when he went to church, he would go to Consolata Shrine every Sunday. If he's not at Consolata Shrine, he was at the Consolata Cathedral in Nyeri.
Yeah.
That's his church. President Moi for 24 years,
AIC.
Much of the time, AIC Milimani, that was his church.
Yeah.
Our politicians, which churches do they go to? And I think it is important that as a society, we agree to nurture our communities. When I say communities, I mean in our society. So if you belong to a religious grouping, nurture that one, so that you're able to be in touch with yourself, in touch with the society itself, so that even when the religious leaders are making decisions or they are guiding the flock, it is not interfered with all these manipulations that come from politics. There has to be a separation from politics and the religious groupings. That has to be taken away from, if we're to realize the church or religious groupings being the conscience of the society that they should be.
But the people that you mentioned, religion and their faith was a rather personal matter. So they went to church and they sat there and they did whatever. And maybe we will get into preaching, which I don't want to do because I'm no preacher, but certain aspects of what we see today reminds me of the Pharisees. It's just all of this, grandiosity and pomposity when it comes to religion. But those are my own personal beliefs about, how one should conduct themselves based on their faith. But to the extent to which you've seen that being propped, you have to wonder whether that is a personal choice that I'm Catholic, I'm this, and this is my faith, and this is my religion, I'm Buddhist or whatever it is, as opposed to whether that is a tool for your political agenda, rather than, I just go to Consolata Shrine, every Sunday when I can, and I sit there and I pray and I do whatever and I leave. But there's been aspects of what we're seeing lately where it is, I will whip myself and I will, but I'm no good at quoting the Bible, so I'll leave it at that.
In an odd way, I see some positivity in this.
How so?
Yes, and I'll explain. Let's try out everything.
Yeah.
And, I think we are a country that will eventually do the right thing after exhausting all the options. We need to exhaust these options. Let the religious groups that, came out in a way that turned the election into some messianic mission.
Yeah.
Let them come out and also give us their fair assessment. Let politicians walk the full length of the shareholding business and reflect at the end of the runway together. We are in a good space because this is reflections across the whole place. We are reflecting. And I remember some time back we were having a conversation about tribalism and whether it will end with elections. And that was during the President Uhuru Kenyatta's term. When Uhuru was being elected, the nickname was Kamwana. This is... And remember, towards the end of his term, he was being insulted and rejected and all that. Because we need to exhaust this thing where even the whole thing of having a person from your community as president. That also should be tested. Test it. And I mean, when you look at the demonstrations the other day during the Gen Z demos about the finance bill, they were countrywide, including in the regions where the president and his deputy enjoy great following. Yeah, because we try this thing so that we stop thinking there's something we are missing out. So even the church is invited to do that. Bring your messiahs, test them in government, and if you're unhappy, tell us. If you're happy, you know what to do, and you see what they are saying. So there's something positive about this. Right. Let's try them out. Let's try everything out. Mtoto akililia wembe.
Mpe.
Yeah, because it cuts.
Akijikata? They become wiser. Yeah.
Hopefully. Let's take it home, not to church. That's where we wind up our conversation today. Like we said, we are recusing ourselves from our final word. We shall be back with that next week. And so will Jamila Mohammed, who is greatly missed tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm seeing your feedback. Keep it coming. The hashtag is TheNewsGang. Thanks for always keeping us company. It is time to go to bed now. Sorry. I was going to say just before the clock strikes 12, and it did. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.